Welcome back to Obscure Board Games. This is Class Struggle. Class Struggle is a 1978 board game that, aside from some outdated terminology, still accurately reflects the real-life struggle between socioeconomic classes in our society. The object is to win the revolution, whether you were a member of the working class or a capitalist. To start, each player is assigned a class. There are two major classes, the workers represented by the hammer and the capitalists represented by the top hat. These two are the only classes that can directly win the game. The remaining minor classes, which represent farmers, small business owners, students, and professionals, can only win by aligning themselves with the major class that they think will ultimately win the revolution. This is because in life, the workers and capitalists struggle for victory and the minor classes struggle to be on the winning side, or at the very least, not on the losing side. Classes are assigned by a roll of the class die, because one's class is determined by chance in real life. Players begin rolling the die to see who will be the capitalist class first. The rules go on to say that people who are white and male-presenting are the most likely to become capitalists in our society, not due to any special qualities, simply because of the unfair rules of society itself. So to reflect real life more accurately, the class die is to be rolled in order of player privilege, starting with players that are straight, white, and male, and ending with players that are queer, of color, and female or other genders. Once the capitalist class has been rolled, the remaining players roll until all other classes are assigned. Each minor class gets an alliance card, pawns are placed at start, and the struggle begins. The capitalist class uses their disproportionate wealth and power to roll first and decide whether to pass the die to the left or right. On your turn, roll and move the number of spaces shown. Rolling doubles grants you an extra roll, however, if you roll the same numbers as the player before you, you do not move. This is because thinking for oneself and not doing what others do is essential for winning the class struggle. Most spaces on the board are divided between red worker spaces and blue capitalist ones. These list strengths and/or weaknesses of the two major classes. When workers or capitalists land on their own space, they collect assets and debits corresponding to the strengths and weaknesses on that space. A debit is worth -1 point, and assets are each worth 1 point. These will decide the fate of the major classes when they confront each other. The minor classes pick up the assets and debits from both spaces until they ally with one of the two major classes. After that, minor classes only get points from their side. If you land on a chance space, pick up a card from the pile that you are aligned with. Capitalists have their own chance cards, and so do the workers. Minor classes choose which pile to pick from until aligning with a major class. What is good luck for the working class is bad luck for the capitalists, and vice versa. There are 84 spaces on the board. Certain spaces grant the workers and their allies with a workers' trade union and a political party that can be used to ensure the movement's survival. Chance for alliance spaces allow players to enter alliances. Alliances are powerful but come at a price. Minor classes will give their alliance cards to the major class that they align with, and to cement the agreement, when the minor class rolls on their next turn, the major class will take an equal number of debits, unless they roll doubles. Classes do have the option to refuse an alliance, but if one class wants to align and the other does not, both roll the dice and the higher roll gets their way. Alliances come into play at confrontations. There are 6 confrontation squares in yellow on the board. When either major class or one of its allies lands on one of these spaces, they can decide to call the confrontation. When a confrontation is called, the major classes and their allies sum up all of the assets and debits they have between them. The class with the higher number wins the confrontation. This means that players should keep their assets hidden from their opponents to keep them guessing. Some alliances are more valuable than others, though. If the capitalist class gains an alliance with both the small business owners and professionals, their assets and debits count as double. The same is true for the workers if they align with both the students and farmers. The first confrontation is square number 2, in the factory every day. Since the capitalists roll first, if they immediately roll a 2, they crush all unions and working class political parties. The working class has no wealth or resources to call their own, so they're forced to sell their labor to the capitalists for as much as they can get to stay alive. This is the shortest and saddest end to the class struggle. The major class that wins an election or general strike confrontation is given 3 free rolls of the dice. However, an election is only a true confrontation if the workers or an ally has landed on a political party space. Per the rules, in an election between the capitalist parties of Tweedle Democrats and Tweedle Dumblikins, the workers can only lose. So if the capitalists reach the elections before the working class gains a political party, they automatically win the election. Similarly for general strikes, the workers or their allies must form a trade union before the strike can effectively balance the amount of power the capitalists hold over them. If there's no union yet, there's no class solidarity and the strikes automatically fail. Once you reach the innermost level of the board, tensions are rising between classes and you may now decide to move what you roll on your turn or force any of your opponents to move double that number of spaces following the instructions of the space they land on. The final confrontation space can only be called by one of the major classes. The class that wins this confrontation wins the game. A worker revolution ensures an era of peace, democracy, equity, and equality, whereas a capitalist victory ensures an era where the rich get richer and the poor are left to suffer. The major class that calls the revolution only adds the debits and assets of the allies that are also on the final square with it. The opposing major class adds all value of all their allies. To help your allies once you reach the final space, you may use future rolls to advance your allies to the revolution. However, there is one final way that the game can end. The capitalists control the state and are therefore capable of any folly once they sense their days in power are numbered. If the capitalist lands on square number 81 before the workers or their allies, they trigger a nuclear war, immediately ending the game for all classes and leaving no winner behind. Who will win the class struggle? Which side will you be on when the revolution comes?